So yeah, autoregulation is a broad concept. I think typically when I hear people talk about autoregulation, either they don't know what it is or they pigeonhole it a little too much into being just like RPE based training. So it often gets, like I said, kind of limited a little too much into being just training with RPE, which I'll talk about what that is, or sometimes strawman and looked at a little too broadly as just quote unquote instinctive training. But at the heart of what auto-regulation is, it is very much based on the word itself. So auto is like self-regulation, and then regulation is modifying things based upon the feedback. So this is something that's inherent to any good training already, although it may not necessarily be auto-regulation. So if you were to go back pre-internet, and you were to look at some of the most successful weightlifting programs or powerlifting programs or bodybuilding gyms, you can find a lot of coaches who will have a general plan, but then when they're working with their athlete, they might see that they are more fatigued, not recovering well, things aren't going well, they're not, feeling a specific movement. This is going to be sports specific, and they'll make an adjustment based on the feedback they get and what they're seeing in real time. So that's not auto-regulation, but it's the same concept. So auto-regulation is simply a tool where you're using this to self-regulate those outcomes. And this can be really helpful in the modern internet age, where even if you do have a coach, the program they give you is a piece of paper or a Google sheet. You're printing it out or you're looking at it online, and you have to make some decisions on the fly without their guidance. They're not typically going to be on a Skype call with you for every set and every rep. So this enables you to take that broad general plan you get from your coach, and then the coach hopefully is giving you the tools through different auto-regulation strategies to be able to deal with the variables and the biofeedback you're getting in real time. So like I mentioned, it gets pigeonholed into just being quote unquote RPE training sometimes. And the most common auto-regulation tool that people are most aware of that came most modernly out of the powerlifting community, championed by a gentleman named Mike Tuchscherer, is basically using a modified RPE scale to adjust load. So an RPE scale, this goes back 50 years of research. It originally was used in like aerobic incremental exercise tests, and they had like a 6-to-20 scale, which was supposed to kind of correlate with being 1/10 of your resting to 1/10 of your maximal heart rate, like 60 to 200 beats per minute. Ton of research on that, like I said, for the last multiple decades. But in around 2008 or so, Mike T created the RPE scale based on repetitions in reserve, which we've also then subsequently researched. And this is basically saying, hey, instead of it being a 6-to-20 scale, we'll use a 1-to-10 version. A 10 RPE maximal effort means that was the most number of reps you could have done with that load. And you could not have done another rep, and you could not have added even 1 kilo more to the bar and still completed that number of reps. So it's a true max, right? A 9 RPE is I could have done 1 more rep. An 8 RPE is I could have done 2 more reps. A 7 RPE is 3 more reps and on down. So it's inversely related to how many more reps you have, quote unquote, left in the tank. So what this allows you to do is you can program for someone, hey, I'd like you to do, a single at 8 RPE. And that means on that day, they're selecting what they think their 3-rep max is, and they're going to do 1 rep with it, because then they have 2 reps left in the tank, AKA 8 RPE. But that's not all of auto-regulation. That is load auto-regulation. But there's tons of other ways to auto-regulate. You can use an auto-regulated exercise selection strategy, which is probably more useful for accessory movements or bodybuilding. This can be based on if you're traveling, what you have access to. Like you might have a body part slot, but you go, okay, any elbow flexion movement that I have access to is fine. It could be related to, if you get tendonitis in a recurring, phase or something like that. You can do volume autoregulation. So for example, you can use what's called an Rpe Stop. So you can do multiple repeated sets with a given load until it becomes a certain RPE. So you could say, hey, I'm going to do a set of 8 with 70% of my 1RM. Now we're combining strategies. We're using traditional loading, and we're also going to use RPE. And once a set of 8 with the same rest period becomes a 8 RPE or higher, that's when I'll stop. So it might start off as a 6, because most people, they can do more than 8 reps with 70% of 1RM, but as cumulative fatigue sets in, that could result in a variable number of sets, anywhere from 2 to 5 or something like that. So anyway, those are just a couple examples. You can also auto-regulate your frequency of training, the days you step in the gym. You can institute a recovery day when you normally would have a gym day based on some type of metric or a subjective determination or score. But ultimately, there's a ton of different auto-regulation strategies. Some have been field tested, and some have been actually empirically validated and compared against non-auto-regulated strategies in the research, which is what my PhD was basically on. I do really think that you can choose a deload strategy that is something you enjoy more. So what typically most people hate is they go from doing, sets of 5 to 12 between, 70 to 85% of 1RM. And then on their deload week, they just do